There is a woman in Toronto whose entire job is to stay calm on camera. She has interviewed politicians during election night chaos. She has covered breaking news with a straight face while the world was falling apart behind her. She has stood on red carpets next to some of the biggest names in Hollywood without blinking. And then one night in August 2026, one single K-pop idol walked out on a stage in front of her, and every ounce of that professional composure completely disappeared. If you have never heard of Jimin before this exact moment, stay with me, because by the end of this video you're going to understand exactly why a hardened, veteran Canadian news anchor turned into a full-blown fangirl in front of thousands of people, and why the internet has not stopped talking about it since. Her name is Jee-Yun. If you live in Toronto, you already know her face. She is one of the main hosts of CP24 Breakfast, which is basically the Canadian version of a major morning news show, the kind of program people turn on with their coffee before work, expecting weather updates, traffic reports, and serious headlines. She has been in broadcast journalism for almost 3 decades. She has covered G20 summits. She has reported live from major disasters. She has interviewed A-list celebrities on red carpets during some of the biggest film festivals in the world, and never once lost her professional composure. This is not some random fan account. This is not a teenager screaming into a phone camera. This is a respected, established, award-winning journalist whose entire career is built on staying composed under pressure. So here's what happened. BTS, arguably the biggest boy band on the planet right now, brought their massive ARIRANG World Tour to Toronto for 2 sold-out nights at Rogers Stadium. We are talking about a stadium packed with tens of thousands of fans, screaming from the second the lights went down. And somewhere in that crowd, on night 1 was Jee-Yun. Not there to report a story, not there on assignment. She was there simply because, like millions of people around the world, she is a fan. And what she experienced that first night hit her so hard that she went home, opened Instagram, and posted something that instantly caught fire online. In her post, she described the exact moment it happened, the moment during that first night of the tour when she says she fell completely, hopelessly in love with Jimin. Not metaphorically, not as a joke. She used those actual words. A moment when she fell in love with Jimin during the first night of BTS World Tour ARIRANG in Toronto. And then, almost as a punchline to her own confession, she gave him a nickname that has since taken over comment sections everywhere. She called him, quote, her Chimmy Fallon. Now if you are not deep into the BTS fandom, that nickname might sound completely random to you. But trust me, it is one of the smartest, funniest, most layered nicknames a fan has come up with in a long time. And once you understand it, you will get why ARMY, that is what BTS fans call themselves, went absolutely wild over it. So let me break it down for you real quick, because this is where the story gets genuinely interesting. First part of the nickname, Chimmy. Chimmy is a character Jimin himself created. Years ago, BTS launched an entire universe of cartoon mascots called BT21, and each member designed their own character based on parts of their personality. Jimin's character is a fluffy white puppy with black ears named Chimmy, known for trying its hardest at everything without worrying about the outcome. It became one of the most beloved characters in the entire BT21 lineup, plastered on merchandise, plushies, phone cases, you name it. So Chimmy is essentially Jimin's cartoon alter ego, something ARMY has associated with him for years. Second part of the nickname, Fallon. This is a reference to Jimmy Fallon, the American late-night talk show host. BTS has appeared on The Tonight Show multiple times over the years, and every single time, there has been this undeniable chemistry between Jimin and Fallon specifically. It goes back years, to their very first meeting, when Fallon wore a headband featuring Jimin's Chimmy character on air and hyped up Jimin's introduction, so much that fans started calling it a bromance. That connection has only grown since then, with more appearances, more inside jokes, more on-air moments between the two of them that fans still bring up constantly. So when Jee-Yun smashed those two references together and called Jimin her, quote, Chimmy Fallon, she was doing something really clever. She was combining Jimin's own adorable self-created mascot with a reference to one of the most famous ongoing celebrity friendships in late-night television, and turning it into a personal, affectionate nickname for the moment he apparently swept her off her feet. It is playful. It is a little chaotic. It shows she actually knows the fandom lore, not just the surface-level stuff. And that authenticity is exactly why this post spread the way it did. Now let's talk about why this story matters beyond just being a cute, funny moment. Because honestly, this is not really about one reporter having a fangirl moment. This is about what Jimin, and BTS as a whole, are capable of doing to people, regardless of age, profession, or how emotionally guarded they normally are. We're talking about a performer who has this reported ability to completely disarm people, even people who spend their entire careers maintaining composure in high-pressure, high-visibility situations. Think about it this way. This is a woman who has stood next to some of the most famous actors and musicians alive during red carpet events and kept her cool every single time. That is literally part of her job description. And yet one night at a concert, watching Jimin perform live, something broke through all of that professional training. If you have ever wondered why BTS has this reputation of creating what fans call converts, meaning people who walk into a concert as skeptics or casual observers and walk out as full-blown fans, this is basically a live, real-time example of exactly that phenomenon happening to a public figure whose job depends on staying unaffected. And Toronto really was the perfect stage for this to happen. Let's set the scene for you, because the atmosphere that weekend was genuinely electric. BTS brought their ARIRANG World Tour, which is tied to their massive comeback album released in March 2026, their first full-length album since the members returned from their mandatory military service in South Korea. This tour has been described by fans and press as one of the most anticipated in years, precisely because it marks BTS reuniting as a complete 7-member group after years of solo projects and service commitments. Toronto got 2 nights at Rogers Stadium, and by all accounts, both nights were absolutely massive. Fans reportedly started lining up outside the venue hours before doors even opened, some traveling from other cities and even other countries just to be there. Weather did not cooperate either. Reports from local coverage described cold winds and rain hitting the outdoor stadium, and yet thousands of fans stayed anyway, completely unbothered, because that is the kind of dedication this fandom brings. And it was not just Jee-Yun Lee who walked away with a story to tell. That same Toronto stop reportedly produced several other emotional, viral moments. There are accounts describing BTS member V noticing a fan in a wheelchair and giving him his hoodie as a gift, a moment that a fan managed to capture and later shared with the recipient's mother, who was reportedly overwhelmed with gratitude. There are also accounts from the earlier show describing band leader RM noticing a fan's birthday sign in the crowd and acknowledging her directly. These kinds of moments, big global superstars noticing individual fans in a crowd of tens of thousands and creating personal connections in real time, are part of exactly why this fandom is so devoted and why nights like these end up producing viral stories over and over again. So when you put it all together, you start to understand why Jee-Yun Lee's post hit different. It was not happening in a vacuum. It was happening in the middle of a weekend that the internet was already buzzing about, with multiple emotional, shareable moments coming out of the same 2 shows. Her post landed right in the middle of that wave, and because of who she is, a recognizable, respected news personality rather than an anonymous fan account, it carried extra weight and extra reach. People who might not normally pay attention to K-pop content started sharing it specifically because it was coming from someone they already recognized from their local news broadcasts. Now, before we go further, let's be clear about something, because accuracy matters here. This story is based on what Jee-Yun Lee herself posted publicly on her own Instagram account, describing her own personal experience and feelings in her own words. We are not claiming anything beyond what she shared. We are simply telling you what she said happened and breaking down why it resonated so widely. If you want to see the original post for yourself, it is out there, publicly posted under her verified account, and honestly, seeing the exact wording and the photo she chose only makes the story better. Let's talk for a second about why Jimin specifically tends to have this effect on people, because this is not the first time we have seen a story like this. Jimin has built a reputation, both within the fandom and increasingly outside of it, as one of the most magnetic performers in the group. His stage presence gets described constantly by fans, and even casual observers, as something that is genuinely difficult to look away from. He has this ability to shift from incredibly powerful, technically precise dancing to these softer, more emotionally vulnerable moments within the same performance. And that contrast is part of what makes watching him live such an overwhelming experience for a lot of people. Apparently even people who did not expect to be overwhelmed at all. There is also the fact that Jimin has spent years building individual relationships with public figures outside the K-pop world, which is part of why references like Jimmy Fallon land so easily with a general audience. He has appeared on The Tonight Show multiple times, both as part of BTS and as a solo artist promoting his own music, including his debut album Face and his follow-up album Muse. Each time, that same natural chemistry with Fallon shows up again, whether it is teaching him a dance move on live television or just the two of them joking around comfortably like old friends. That familiarity is part of why a nickname blending Jimin's own mascot with Fallon's name makes so much intuitive sense to people who follow the fandom closely. If you are new to all of this, if this is genuinely the first time you are hearing the name Jimin, I want you to sit with that for a second. A globally recognized broadcast journalist, someone whose entire professional identity is built around staying composed no matter what is happening in front of her, watched this one performer for a single night and walked away calling herself in love, giving him a nickname that fans are still repeating days later. That is not a small thing. That is the kind of reaction that tells you something real is happening with this artist and this group right now, and if you have been sleeping on BTS, this might genuinely be the moment to pay attention. It is also worth pointing out just how rare this kind of public reaction actually is coming from someone in her position. Journalists, especially ones with decades in the industry, tend to be extremely careful about what they post publicly, precisely because their credibility is their entire currency. Every word they put online gets scrutinized. So when someone like Jee-Yun, who has spent almost 30 years building a reputation for professionalism, chooses to publicly post something this personal, this playful, and honestly this vulnerable, it is not something she would have done lightly. That alone tells you the moment she experienced that night was significant enough to her that she decided it was worth sharing with her tens of thousands of followers, career reputation and all. That is a pretty powerful statement about the impact of watching Jimin perform live, even if you walked in as a casual fan rather than a diehard member of the fandom. And this does not seem to be an isolated pattern either. Jimin's live performances have built a reputation, largely through fan accounts and reaction clips online, for catching people off guard, even people who consider themselves fairly unshakable. Part of that reportedly comes down to how he performs. He does not just hit choreography, he tells a story with every movement, pairing that with small, intimate moments, direct eye contact with sections of the crowd, little unscripted gestures that make people in a stadium of tens of thousands feel like they just had a personal moment with him individually. That is an incredibly hard thing to pull off at that scale, and it is likely a big part of why a reaction like Jee-Yun's was able to happen in the first place. Now here is where I want you to actually engage with this video, because we put real time and research into breaking this story down accurately for you, and it genuinely helps the channel when you interact. If this story caught you off guard, if you are sitting there thinking, wait, a serious news anchor really said that, drop a comment below and tell us what you think about the whole Jimmy Fallon nickname. Is it clever? Is it chaotic? Let us know. And if you are new here and you want more breakdowns like this one, stories about BTS, about Jimin, about everything happening around this tour as it continues across North America, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now, because we are covering this tour stop by stop, and you do not want to miss what comes next. Let's also talk about the bigger picture here, because this moment did not happen in isolation. It is part of a much larger pattern that keeps repeating itself every single time BTS, or any of its individual members, step onto a stage or a screen. This is a group that has consistently, over more than a decade now, managed to convert skeptics into fans almost overnight. Fans have shared plenty of stories over the years about parents who tagged along to a concert expecting to be bored, only to walk out talking about the production, the vocal ability, the choreography, and the emotional connection the group builds with a stadium full of strangers. Jee-Yun's story simply appears to be one of the most public, high-profile examples of that same pattern playing out in real time. It also says something about where BTS is right now as a cultural force. The group returned from their individual military service commitments and immediately dove back into a full comeback with the ARIRANG album and this massive world tour. For a group to step away for years, with members individually enlisting in service, and come back to sold-out stadiums, viral moments at every single stop, and reactions like this from public figures who are not even part of the traditional fanbase, that tells you their pull has not faded one bit. If anything, based on what we are seeing out of these early North American tour stops, the reaction feels even bigger than before. And this is exactly why moments like the one Jee-Yun Lee experienced end up becoming bridges for new fans. Because when someone with an established public reputation, someone who is not typically associated with fandom culture, publicly and enthusiastically expresses this level of admiration, it gives permission, in a weird way, for other people watching to admit they feel the same curiosity. It normalizes the fascination. It makes it less like some closed-off subculture thing and more like, okay, this is clearly a big deal. Maybe I should actually watch a clip and see what the fuss is about. So if you are someone who has heard the name BTS 100 times, who has seen clips pop up on your feed for years, but never really looked into it, consider this video your sign. Go watch a clip from this Toronto stop. Watch Jimin perform live. See if you understand, even a little bit, why a professional broadcast journalist with decades of experience staying composed on camera walked away from one single night calling herself completely smitten and coining a nickname that the internet has not stopped repeating since. It is also worth noting how quickly moments like this one travel once they leave the original fandom bubble. A post like Jee-Yun Lee's does not stay contained to K-pop fan accounts for long. It gets picked up by entertainment pages, gets clipped and reposted across platforms, gets discussed on morning radio segments, and before long it is being seen by people who have zero connection to the fandom at all, simply because the story itself is so relatable. Everyone understands what it feels like to be caught off guard by an unexpected wave of admiration for someone, whether that is a celebrity, an athlete, or honestly just someone you saw once and could not stop thinking about. That universal relatability is exactly why a story like this crosses over from niche fan content into something a much broader, more mainstream audience ends up engaging with, sharing, and talking about. There is also a bigger conversation happening here about how K-pop, and BTS specifically, has managed to fully embed itself into mainstream Western media and pop culture over the last several years. It is not just about music charts anymore. It is about moments like this, where a mainstream North American news personality becomes part of a story herself, blurring the line between reporter and fan in a way that would have felt almost unthinkable a decade ago. BTS appearing on major American late-night shows, collaborating with global pop stars, headlining massive stadium tours across North America, and now literally becoming the subject of viral stories created by the very journalists who once might have only covered them from a professional distance. All of that paints a pretty clear picture of just how far this group's reach has grown. Before we wrap this up, I want to make sure we are being fair and accurate about everything we covered today. Everything about Jee-Yun Lee's reaction comes directly from her own public Instagram post, in her own words, describing her own personal experience that night. The broader details about the Toronto tour stop, the weather, the fan moments involving other members, the album and tour timeline, all of that comes from publicly reported coverage around the event. We are not speculating about her personal life or her feelings beyond what she chose to share publicly, and we think that is exactly what makes the story so fun. It is a real, relatable, human moment, dressed up in fandom language, shared by someone the public already trusts and recognizes. At the end of the day, this story is a perfect little snapshot of what BTS, and specifically Jimin, continue to do to audiences all over the world, regardless of age, career, or how emotionally guarded someone normally is. A veteran journalist walked into a stadium and walked out with a new nickname for her favorite performer, and honestly, who among us hasn't had a moment like that with an artist we love? If this video gave you even a little insight into why this group commands this level of devotion, do us a favor and hit that like button. It genuinely helps push videos like this one out to more people who might enjoy the story just as much as you did. Drop a comment telling us if you have ever had a Jimmy Fallon moment of your own with a celebrity. We want to hear it. And if you want to stay caught up with everything happening on this tour as BTS continues across North America, subscribe now and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next story. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.